Chapter 3, Citadel. Untitled, the magical city hidden in the astral realm. August 7th, 1998. The spiraling colors and lights subside in an instant, abruptly and harsh. The contents of Danny's stomach are wrenched up in a single purge as her entire body feels like it's been turned inside out. A throbbing headache stabs at the teenager's temples, and the transition of the surroundings leaves her doubled over in confusion and nausea. Danny's head continues to spin. Her world continues to move even after she ceases and is forced to shut her eyes tightly. A metallic and bitter taste fills the air, causing Danny to grimace. Charged particles of magical energy lingers rather than dissipating quickly, as often is the case in the primary world. The small hairs on Danny's arms stand on end as if the entire atmosphere is filled with static electricity. Glowing clouds of alternating blues and violets shimmer like miniature aurora borealis all along the horizon, despite there being no view of any celestial bodies from within the astral realm. Dark and depressing, the only light that ever fills the world is that generated by the brief flashes of appearing wayward spirits. Here in this oasis within the gloom, glowing clouds of non-dispersed magic reflects off the crystalline structures and the individually conjured orbs and lanterns, turning the city into a grand lighthouse in the center of a black ocean. His head throbs, and her eyes are unable to focus, overwhelming of her senses in the strange rush of traveling through the dimensional void. "You'll get used to it after a few times," a voice says from Danny's left. The voice belongs to Master Juvet Diota, whom Danny has pledged herself to as a potential apprentice. Danny tries to mouth a response, but quickly cups her hands over her lips in an attempt to avoid another round of vomiting. "Don't you have some other way to travel that isn't so taxing?" Danny asks as she is finally able to make out the features of the young Menel Cariani and Master Diota as they emerge from the light. With a square-cut jaw, short, cropped, sandy-colored hair, and little body fat with lean muscle, Menel is what many women would hold up as a perfect male specimen. To Danny, however, he looks like a walking action figure, too sculpted and appearing fake. "Is this girl really worth all our time, Master?" Menel asks, annoyed by Danny's casual, and what he regards as disrespectful, tone. High-born from European aristocrats, Menel's blood carries all the arrogance and condescension of centuries of lordship. Miss Livingston has already been instructed in our ways and knows spells more dangerous than you have ever witnessed firsthand. It would be irresponsible, as well as immoral, not to show her the correct path of magic. Too many young mages have been corrupted and fallen to darkness. We cannot turn our backs on one that can yet be saved, the aged and wise master says. "Danny, would you please grab your belongings?" Collecting 2 bags from the street, she feels vertigo once more, seeing her reflection in the crystalline ground. Shaking it off, she takes what will be her only possessions, some clothing and personal effects, and follows the 2 magicians as they lead her to her quarters. "Did you properly say your farewells? It may be several weeks or even months before you are able to visit at all," Master Diota says. Nodding, Danny doesn't mention that in her drunken state, her mother probably will not remember their conversation at all in the morning. Late nights of drinking until she blacks out have severely strained the relationship between the mother and daughter. Now that the nausea has begun to wear off, Danny takes in the grand sight before her fully for the first time. Looking at the sparkling streets and radiant buildings around her, Danny is in awe of the hidden magical city of Untitled. "Wow," is all Danny can mutter, as the glistening crystalline streets and buildings of the magical city appear before her in all their splendor. "We use crystalline quartz as the primary building material here, as it is highly conductive to magic and boosts our abilities and stamina considerably. Many spells that are difficult to perform may be practiced here where the atmosphere and surroundings allow for them to be done much more easily. Glancing out into the distance, Danny sees a castle-like structure built of stone and metal. The building stands in stark contrast to all those around it. Those are the Detention Towers. That section of the city is not built out of the crystal, because it is designed to inhibit magic and restrict the ability to cast spells. How is this place here? She asks. I mean, how is this even possibly made? Master Deota smiles. The simplest answer is magic. In the distant past, magicians were revered among their communities. They were consulted for their wisdom and sought for everything, from dream interpretation to help with growing crops. Some magicians can manipulate the elements and bring rain to drought-stricken regions, while others could move the element of earth to help expand cities and fortify protective walls. For thousands of years, magicians were among the most valued members of society. What changed? Danny asks, thinking of the present age where magic is relegated to superstition and legend. The rise of militaristic empires changed everything. Despite their great armies, leaders of these regimes knew that the most skilled magicians could turn the tide of a battle in seconds. The empires of Medo-Persia, Babylon, Greece, and Rome hunted those trained in magic and burned them upon great fires in an attempt to erase their influence on history. By the time of Christ and the formation of the Catholic Church, magicians had already been nearly wiped off the face of the earth for years. Realizing the gift of magic was originally taught to humans by the Yazatan angels, a small number of monks began to use it in secret and give its glory to God. Remembering from history the stigma given to the practice of magic and the treatment of those dedicated to learning it, Danny shudders to think what fate awaited the monks should they have been discovered. Seeing the girl tense, Master Deota continues with his story. Yes, many of those monks that were exposed as magic users were labeled heretics and witches. No small amount of innocent blood was spilt in the persecution of the arcane. Fearing a permanent loss of their gift to the humans, a handful of Yazata constructed this city as a refuge for those who sought to practice magic for the betterment of mankind. Why did the angels build the city out of crystal? Danny asks, looking around at the shining buildings and quartz-lined streets. She recalls from her studies with Schaefer the importance of crystal in magic rituals, but never understood exactly why it was needed. What makes crystal so special? Crystal acts as a magnification device, strengthening all magic done in its presence. The Yazata taught this to humans very early on. Numerous civilizations utilized crystal in their religious ceremonies and artifacts. Crystal was even an essential element in the development of modern technology and watches, then later, phones and computers. Not only does crystal amplify magic, it acts to block all spells done outside of its range. A city constructed of crystal protects its inhabitants from the magic of any of those who would seek to do them harm. We cannot be tracked or traced, and no magic can be used to reach us without our own involvement. Here on the astral plane, the only beings that can see us are the Yazata, who can pass through all dimensions at will, and the wandering spirits of the dead that have not passed on to the underworld. The crystal blocks the dead from breaching our walls, as well if you were curious. The angels don't see the use of magic by humans as a threat to religion, the same way that the church does. Master Deota becomes silent, thinking deeply on his own theology and those that are taught in the material world. Our libraries are far more extensive and complete compared to those remaining on Earth. We possess copies of texts and scrolls that were long ago destroyed by fearful zealots of many different religions, misguided by power and the desire to maintain their control. How is it that magic wasn't completely snuffed out on Earth? I was taught it by my sensei, and even Jake experienced some degree of it in his training with a man named Radnovich and his friend Scrimauer. Upon hearing the name Scrimauer, Master Deota winces and quickly glances around to ensure no one else has heard his new potential student speak the name. A wanted criminal of an even higher threat priority than Elian Schaefer. Multiple task forces have been formed in the sole purpose of apprehending the rogue. I cannot speak for this Radnovich or his friend, but Elian Schaefer was once counted among our own. He was never extremely talented or motivated. Master Forgeron tried very hard to nurture the gifts within Elian, but he was rebellious and gave up on things easily. Elian defected to the Earth, somehow eluding our detection until he was already gone and in hiding. Had he been stopped, Elian would have been given a jinx mark, preventing him from accessing the ability within himself to perform spells. Are these jinx marks effective? Yes, they are very effective. Had you declined our offer, we'd have had no other choice but to bar your own ability to use magic ever again. Danny is outraged, feeling this is a violation of her personal rights and freedoms. How can you declare a monopoly on an energy source that was given to the entire human race? Danny asks angrily. The Yazata entrusted those of us in the city to preserve the integrity of their divine gift and ensure that it was never used improperly. We cannot tolerate the existence of rogue elements. Deota encourages Danny to look past him towards the 3 detention towers, which serve as the operations base for the Knights of Solomon and Delgion's police force. Even with the Knights, we find it difficult to apprehend all unknown magicians. We are spread thin and benefit more from training those with natural gifts rather than placing extreme limitations on them. That's why you took a chance with Master Schaefer. You gambled that a potential ally was worth the risk. Kinda like lowering the bar for employees when you have a high turnover rate. Frowning, Master Deota responds. A hint of agitation is in his voice. Elian Schaefer was never a master of anything but his own desire. His instructional period was too brief, and his progress too erratic for being promoted to anything beyond apprentice. These descriptions do not sit well with Danny. They do not seem to describe the ruthless instructor who first introduced her to the arcane and changed her life forever. Mr. Schaefer did not seem to be the novice as you paint him. He taught me spells to increase my own speed and stamina, control the actions of the weak-minded, cast elemental fire, and even summon binding chains. Do all apprentices learn such potentially dangerous techniques? Your suspicion is valid and not without support. Many others, myself included, have always seen the situation highly suspicious, to say the least. To become a Knight of Solomon, one must advance to the rank of Master and be nominated by 2 others of equal standing. In the pursuit of Elian Schaefer, 2 knights were murdered. We asked ourselves, how could a mere apprentice, especially one struggling so visibly to keep up, kill 2 master-level magicians? Naturally, Elian's teacher, Master Torres Forgeron, became a person of interest. Going directly to Captain Akanzi Arisai, leader of the Knights of Solomon, I put forward the possibility that Master Forgeron's instructions to Elian was falsified. That idea wasn't well received, was it? Danny asks, things starting to become clearer to her. Captain Arisai harbored the same suspicions. After following Forgeron for months and turning up no evidence of conspiracy, resources were diverted back to the location and training of young, magical adepts on Earth. Wondering if the dark power that guided Elian to revive the Sakari monster known as Yamura could have somehow aided in his escape and hiding from the Knights of Solomon, Danny tells Master Deota all that she remembers. Elian went for days without sleeping, coming to the dojo looking terrible and barely functional. During those times, he would sometimes mutter about a voice. Some phantom voice tormented him at all hours, urging him to do things. The voice led him to find the Book of the Black Earth, and the spell necessary to prepare and locate Yamura's vessel. At first we just thought that the disembodied voice was merely that of the Sakari general himself, but several times Elian said a name as if in prayer, saying Sheh Salah. Sheh Salah, Deota whispers with surprise. That is Yazatan for blessed teacher. What does that mean? Was it something written in the book? I didn't have much unsupervised reading time. Sane, the blessed teacher. Sane was one of the Yazata Sarim, or princes. They were the highest ranked of all the Yazata, and also served as the archie-generals of each of the 13 choirs. He led the second choir as the Aralim, who kept all records of knowledge in the universe. Sane's wisdom and intellect was second only to the Creator himself, though the Yazata sought to test that multiple times. Sane would constantly question God, and offer criticisms on how he thought he could improve upon things. Eventually his hubris became too much, and he was cast out from the Anshar realm, known to us humans as the Heavens. Was he Satan or something? Danny asks, faintly recalling the biblical references to the angel removed from his prestigious position in heaven for his arrogance. She has never been too religious. In fact, she has never really believed in any god. To Danny, all can be explained by the magic that every human is capable of using if shown how. General Sataniel was among the great heroes that finally defeated Sane and his followers. For his decorum and valor, he earned many titles and honors. It was not until much later that he became the basis for what you know as Satan. Master Deota finds it deeply troubling that the first of all the fallen beings led Elian Schaefer on his quest to find the book once written by the Aralim. I fear the situation on Earth is going to soon become much worse. We must begin your training as soon as possible if you're ever going to become strong enough to aid your friend Jake. Aid? Aid Jake? Why? What do you mean by that? Danny wonders if there is a spell that can be used to remove Yamura's spirit from the teenager once and for all. If it is Sane who has set in motion all of these events that we are now experiencing, his goal is surely to walk again in the flesh. Choosing a vessel able to be possessed with the spirit of a Sakari, as strong as Yamura, may be his plan, yet it is too early to tell. I will have to research the matter much further on my own. For now, we must focus on what is immediately in front of us. Deota stops, expecting company before they arrive. Sensing new presences, 4 heavily armored knights appear around the 3 of them. Drawing their swords, the men await for the newcomers to identify themselves. Danny notices various brightly glowing glyphs carved onto the men's blades. She guesses that the markings activate different spells or enhancements on their weapons during combat. She doesn't wish to see them in action, and looks over at Master Deota, who remains calm. Master Juvet Deota, the elder man says, gently pulling back his cloak to reveal an illuminated tattoo etched onto his neck. 2 short swords gripped in the talons of a black feathered eagle, with a golden crown, flashes back at the knights who inspect it. One of the knights nods and turns towards Manel. Danny guesses that this knight outranks the others, and is highly placed among their caste. Provost Manel Karyani, Manel says, revealing a tattoo identical to that of his master. Master Deota sees that Danny is confused by the method of identification, by branding, and explains the system to her. This spell glyph identifies me through a lineage of my masters before me. I received my mark from my teacher, Master Darchius Wendell, who received it from his master, Joash Resnan, and so on and so forth back over 1,000 years. The lead knight extends his sword to Danny, who shrugs her shoulders. Sorry, I've got no ink. The knight turns to Master Deota with disapproval. Should you agree to train here with us, you will be expected to take this mark as well, to signify your apprenticeship in my teaching line." "New recruit?" Benjamin Starr asks. Danny sees the mark of the man's lineage on his wrist, a coiled serpent with wings and a scepter clutched in its jaws. She wonders whom he was once apprenticed to, and what other powerful magicians the line has produced over the years, or which teacher's line is the strongest. "Make sure you take her before the Council of Elders, before you proceed on doing anything else. She cannot be allowed to freely walk the city without an identification mark." Master Deota nods, and the knights leave in a flash of light. Danny thinks they could have just as easily walked away, and this action was more of a show of force than anything else. "Our first stop will be the Council of Elders. They will meet with you and judge both your character and aptitude. Should they agree to bestow you onto me as a student, it will be up to you to decide finally if this is the life you wish for yourself." Traveling the crystalline streets, Danny is awestruck by the beauty of the city and the power that it sends coursing through her body. Thick in the air, a coppery taste convinces her that she is breathing in concentrated magical energy produced in excess by the city itself. While walking, she is able to make out various shops, alongside the numerous residences and school buildings. Smells catch in her nostrils and draw her attention towards them. She realizes that even restaurants are present in Delgion. "You should stop by Carlin's first. He makes the best sweet rolls," a voice says from behind. Danny is startled that she was completely unaware of the person's approach until he spoke. She turns to see that the man is only a little older than her, but she can see a great maturity in him, cultivated through years of disciplined training and harsh assignments and duties. His face is clean-shaven, and his hair is cropped close in a militaristic fashion. Danny cannot help her wandering eyes noticing how the tightly fitting armor of the Knights of Solomon the young man is wearing shows off his well-defined and muscular body. "Gotta be better than this," she replies, extending her arms around her. "The air here tastes like Duracell soup." With a shy smile, she continues talking. "And I keep hearing a whistling sound, like a subtle breeze, sort of like someone is chanting spells in my ears that I've never heard before." "Don't pay that any mind. You're merely hearing the voice of old magic that lingers well beyond its use. Magic is strengthened by sound, and the words that called upon those spells in ages past still hovers in the air, preserved by the quartz crystal," Master Deota explains. She notices that Danny pays him little attention, and instead is staring intently at the young knight. "Lieutenant Nando, would you mind escorting my young friend here to the council hall? Minel and I will be around shortly." Lieutenant Valtus Nando returns to his conversation with the newest face in the city. "What about the bad taste?" Danny asks with a frown. Valtus laughs before opening his mouth and extending his tongue to reveal a small pink wad of bubblegum. "You'll learn quickly to chew gum to keep your mind off the taste, as it never really goes away." Valtus smiles again after closing his mouth and resuming his chewing. He reaches into a small utility pouch on his belt that contains various items, such as spell orbs for casting emergency lights, protection charms, should one be unable to speak the incantations, tablets for purifying water, waterproof matches, and a few sticks of gum, of which he hands one to the girl. "On your first trip home, you can send me back a little extra in return." Gaining her confidence, Danny retorts with her usual sarcasm. "You're only loaning me the gum? You're awful cheap, aren't you? I've never had anyone ask me to return candy before." Valtus begins to walk ahead of her, but stops and turns with a smile that causes her face to flush red. "Maybe I just wanted an excuse to talk to you again. Are you coming?" Left speechless and blushing, Danny takes a moment to gather herself before jogging to catch up with her guide. "Have you lived here most of your life?" Danny asks, trying to keep the conversation going. She doesn't want to fall into an awkward silence and chase away any future opportunities of conversation with Valtus. "I was brought here by my master when I was 4. He was on a mission in the physical world, tracking down 2 rogue magicians. In the battle, both rogues were killed, and I was found and taken back to be raised along with my brother Cyril. Your master killed your parents? Danny blurts out before thinking. She is shocked to hear that such a horrible event described so casually. They were dangerous. My master did the right thing. Vadis is suddenly impossible to read, his features becoming statuesque. Danny assumes the tragedy still pains him, but he has been conditioned to view it as unnecessary. She doubts that she could do the same, and she doesn't even care for her mother that much. Do not leave the safety of the city without an escort. Beyond the gates are wandering souls that hunger for human flesh. The gates and walls are warded with the strongest of protective magic, but in the desolation they prowl unhindered. What are they? Danny asks, curious to what horrible dangers lie in wait just outside the city walls. She knows she should be scared rather than curious, but that is just not in her nature. Spirits of the long deceased, warped by jealousy, anger, and a hunger for everything they no longer possess. The more fresh life one of them consumes, the less human they become. Some of the creatures in the abyss beyond are surely older than the city itself, and have mutated beyond all former recognition. No wandering outside, got it, Danny says with a nod. I mean it. Do not take the warning lightly. We have lost experienced masters to these creatures in the past. Rescue missions into the abyss are nearly impossible. All sense of direction and time becomes lost the further one wanders into the astral world. You will no longer feel hunger or pain, and you will die without ever knowing it, and join their world as another spirit. As they continue to walk, Danny wonders if something like that was once human could ever be as terrifying as a Sakari like Yamura. The massive detention towers and headquarters for the Knights of Solomon come into view. The towers are the tallest buildings in the city, and stretch high into the empty black sky. Those are the detention towers where we knights house prisoners who are a danger to the safety and security of the entire city. Our barracks lie between the towers, so that we may keep a close watch on our incarcerated. And that large building just beyond it? Danny asks, pointing to a domed structure, similar to shape to an oversized mosque. That is our destination, the council hall. There, the council of elders gather to discuss all issues pertinent to the functioning of the society. It is they who will determine whether you are suitable for apprenticeship or not. Danny becomes angry, remembering what Deota had earlier told her. The not being cursed with a limiter on me to block me from ever casting magic again, right? Vadis grinds his teeth, annoyed that Master Deota shared that information with her so quickly. Yes, I'm afraid that is their most common method of limitation. Doesn't give me much of a choice, does it? Vadis's anger fades, replaced by a feeling of empathy for her. Learning magic from a rogue was not her fault, yet she will be the one punished should the elders choose not to accept her. I don't suppose if things go south for me you'd sneak me out, Danny asked with a nervous laugh. Vadis does not respond to Danny's attempt to lighten the tension. Instead, he thinks on the unfairness of the situation in which she's been placed. This young woman who has enough talent to not only survive against a legendary Sakari warrior, but to actually defeat it with the help of only a handful of non-magical teenagers, should not be punished for the sins of her teacher. Do not be afraid. Master Deota is very well respected by the council, and if he believes you will be accepted, then I must place my confidence in him as well. Danny takes a deep breath, calming herself. I guess I should too if he's going to be my new teacher. Captain of the Knights of Solomon, the elite policing force of the Delgion, Akanzi Erisai, strides up the steps of the Grand Hall of the Elders. Built over 2,000 years ago by the great sorcerer King Solomon, the council hall serves as the site for all matters that must be decided upon in Delgion. 25 elders representing different races, countries, and even realms reside in the hall and use their vast combined wisdom and experience to make decisions for the good of all worlds they know. Captain Arisai, you have a report. Diminutive female elder with bluish-gray hair named Elder Favre asks. At only 4'9", the Yoda-like elder, her eyes squint constantly, so much that no one can tell when they are even open or closed. Her wisdom is exceeded by a few, and her true age is known only by a few of her fellow elders. Removing his helmet, Captain Arisai kneels in respect and bows his head before talking to the elders. His long black hair is peppered with gray, and thin bangs fall over his face as he bows. He places his sword, a beautiful and magically enchanted blade, on the floor in front of him before standing up fully and speaking. Leaving his sword on the floor, the captain defers his fate to the elders, and is a sign of both humility and respect. The response team led by Master Desmond Orono to apprehend the traitor has been completely wiped out. All traces of their life forces have vanished. Impossible. Adrian Scrimauer was a dropout. A Provost-level magician at best. There's no way that he could kill a team of 6 Provosts of equal or greater skill along with the master-ranked magician, Elder Dennis Guerin shouts, standing up from the table in protest. Despite his advanced age, the man's muscles bulge, and his eyes are aflame with passion. 20 years ago, Elder Guerin himself was a member of the Knights of Solomon, and one of the greatest swordsmen to ever breathe. Do not forget that Elian Schaefer was but merely an apprentice and a dropout, as you say, and he killed 2 knights before eluding our detection for 6 years, Elder Favre interjects. Elder Guerin sits back down, allowing Arisai to continue his report. I have also placed 3 of my knights as shadows to follow the boy Jake Stewart, as you have requested. He is unaware of their presence. They must remain undetected. That boy has come into direct contact with both Elian Schaefer and Adrian Scrimauer. He may yet lead us to our quarry, says Elder Mason Yev, a young man by the standards of the elders at only 43. He is ambitious, and is often unable to keep his thoughts or emotions guarded. What he thinks or feels he usually expresses immediately. For sincerity is regarded as one of the most honorable and trustworthy of the magicians. If none of the other elders has any questions, you are dismissed, Captain. Captain Arisai nods and retrieves his blade from the floor. As he exits, he is greeted by a tall man dressed all in black, with dark hair and dark eyes. How did it go? Asks Master Tors Forgeron. None of your concern, Master Forgeron, Captain Arisai says, pushing past the man, regarding his presence as a nuisance. My, how formal, Forgeron laughs. I was just curious. Captain Arisai pivots quickly, glaring at the Master Magician with accusing eyes. The elders may not see through you, but my eyes are still on you. Elian Schaefer knew far too much to be considered a washed-out apprentice. Exiting the Grand Hall, Captain Arisai nearly bumps into Master Deota and Manel. Master Deota, Provost Karyani, the captain says with respect. I take it you are here to speak with the elders? Master Deota nods. Do not expect much from them today. They are very stressed out from our seeming inability to stave the growing threat of the rogue magicians as of late. The efforts to capture Scrimauer failed. Master Orono's team has not been heard from in nearly 3 days, and the worst is feared for them if the elders are unable to even sense their presences. Danny and Vadis reach the council hall's outer gate, which is guarded by 4 knights of Solomon. The men are hardened warriors, expressionless in their diligent watch. Marks, one of the knights, Brennan Sisk asks, ordering all who seek to pass through to identify themselves by their master's brandings. I haven't been accepted yet, Danny whispers. It's sort of why I'm here. Vatis extends his arm, presenting his mark for inspection. I am escorting Miss Livingston into the Grand Hall. Her future master should already be waiting inside. Master Deota did mention that you would be coming through after him. Go ahead, but any problems this unmarked one creates, you are responsible for, replies. Vatus nods, accepting the responsibility. I will take on her crimes as if they were my own. The other knights step aside as Sisk breathes the incantation for passage into the gate. As the path opens up, Danny and Vatus enter the council hall building. The interior of the building is lit up by hundreds of spell orbs, brightly around the tall ceiling like stars. More knights come and go to all different sections of the building, patrolling for any unauthorized entrance or potential dangers. Over here, Master Deota says, waving them over. The man stands with Manel and a beautiful 19-year-old named Alor Kever. Alor's appearance causes Danny to shift uncomfortably, becoming suddenly very self-conscious about herself. Danny, allow me to introduce my other apprentice, Alor. Danny politely greets the girl, but feels as if she's in the presence of a Greek goddess. Alor's golden hair shines brightly and seems to flow like an enchanted stream all the way to her small waist. Herself pretty curvy, Danny curses nature for giving someone like Alor such a large bust, yet little body fat, to be seen anywhere else, and near flawless bronze skin. Danny glances at Vatus to see if he too is taken in by the girl's beauty. Surprisingly, Vatus barely pays any attention to them, and instead begins to scan the hall for his superior, Akanzi Arisai. Thank you for your help, Lieutenant, Master Deota says, seeing his attention wandering. You are welcome to check in on Miss Livingston's progress at any time. It was my pleasure. Vatus turns to Danny. I will be saying prayers for your good fortune before the elders. I hope to see you again next as an apprentice. Me too, Danny sighs. So when does this trial or whatever begin? Do not think of it as a trial. Think of it more as an interview for a college entrance exam, Deota says. Except that if you blow an entrance exam, the professors won't take away your ability to read and write. Danny refuses to release the bitter feelings of the unfairness of being locked out of her powers should the elders feel she is too much of a threat. She worked hard to develop these abilities, and resents anyone thinking they can just take them away. Please do not worry about that. I have every confidence that they will grant your apprenticeship to me. The elders begin to take their seats once more, and Danny is amazed at the diversity among them. She had expected the majority to be old white men, reflective of most judicial courts in the physical world, but instead the elders are representative of the entire human world. At least one elder of each race is known to Danny, as well as a few she can't identify. After several minutes of shuffling around and speaking to each other, the elders prepare for the screening process. Daniela Grace Livingston, Elder Favre says, conjuring sparkles of light to arrange into the girl's likeness above them. Danny is amazed by even this simple trick. You were brought before this council today, in the 19th day of your 17th year. Am I correct? Yes, Elder, ma'am. Elder Favre ignores Danny's stutter and continues. Your previous teacher was Elian Schaefer, former apprentice to Master Tor's Forgeron. For how many years were you under Schaefer's instructions? 3, ma'am. Danny keeps her answers short, as her nervousness continues to grow. She spots Vatus in the crowd. Vatus takes a deep, animated breath, raising both arms up along his chest before exhaling and pushing them back down again. He's right. Just breathe and relax. Sensei Schaefer mostly taught me physical conditioning and martial arts. My exposure to spellcraft was scarce. I do not believe that Sensei Schaefer had a large grasp on magic himself. Master Deota winces, and both Manel and Alor shake their heads in disapproval. Danny decides she has said something wrong and begins to dial back the amount of information given in her responses once more. Elian Schaefer murdered Masters Paz Sella and Adam Yarden, who were sent to apprehend him almost 9 years ago. None of us believe that he was ignorant of master-level spellcraft. Master Salah was an experienced member of the Knights of Solomon, and vetted by this very council, Elder Falv argues with a hint of disdain in her voice. I apologize, ma'am. I'm only aware of what he taught me, or what I witnessed firsthand. Which was? Elder Falv's voice inflects, as she is obviously intrigued by Danny's upcoming answer. Creonle to enhance physical abilities, and Drionle to smother them, Dombe to cast a shrouding mist, and Restranta to summon binding chains, Dukan Helles to repair injuries, and Nixe to repel magical attacks. Badare al Controle to influence the minds of targets whose powers are weaker than my own, and Kooks Nilutak to fire concentrated magical blasts. I also witnessed Sensei conjure the element of fire and use transformative magic to shift into the likeness of a handful of small animals. I was never able to perfect the later two techniques. The council hall becomes raucous with conversation as elders turn to elders to discuss what they've heard. Elder Falv pounds her fists on the desk loudly, demanding order. Are you aware that no fewer than 3 of the spells you have listed are categorized as black magical curses and forbidden from use by anyone below the status of master, and even then not without consent from this council? No, ma'am, I was not. Until recently, I had no idea there was a structure or discipline system behind magic. I was not taught about spells being light or dark, only that the caster must be pure in their intentions. Elder Barak Arles begins to laugh loudly, disrupting the proceedings. Schaefer was a vicious killer and traitor. You would have us believe he taught you about purity? Enough, Elder Arles. I am in charge of this hearing, and I will not tolerate any further interruption, Elder Falv says with agitation. You say that Schaefer could conjure the fire element, but yourself having difficulty with it. An apprentice's first lessons revolve around the basic elements, and all future ones are built upon that foundation. Do you believe that you could succeed here without having those principles already established? I will work hard and learn whatever it is you require of me. I do not want to be turned away. Master Deota, why do you choose this girl as your apprentice? She is older than most candidates, and has much less training. Has the allure of dark magic gotten to your mind? Not at all. After you have granted Danny to me as an apprentice, she shall be forbidden to use the Badare al Controle spell. I will teach her the fundamentals, and make her among the greatest masters you have ever beheld. You did not answer my question in all of your suppositions. Danny possesses a raw talent that I saw the moment I laid eyes on her. The rumors are true. She did fight against the Sakari Yamura, and she did actively contribute to his defeat. With no proper magical education, she was able to stand against one of the most fearsome creatures in this reality, and survive. With the foundation we could give her, she would become not only a valuable asset to this city, but also a great leader in her own right. Your dreams are awfully big, Master. Do you honestly believe this girl to be capable of overcoming such large obstacles? I stake my reputation on it. The elders again break into loud conversation, until Elder Falv is again forced to silence them. So be it. Miss Livingston has 1 week before we make our final decision. Upon that time, she will be required to perform at the level of a third-year apprentice, taking her previous into account. If she cannot completely demonstrate this level of ability, it will be the Council's decision that she be denied apprenticeship and forever restricted from the use of magic. Danny is struck speechless. She had just finished telling the woman how Schaefer barely taught her anything, and now she has 1 week to show that she can perform at the same level as a student, having 3 years of solid instruction. Don't let it trouble you. We will get you ready in time, Deota says with a smile. Vatus and Akanzi approach as the elders dismiss. That could have gone much worse, Vatus says, trying to cheer Danny up. Were we watching the same screening? Fav could have immediately said no to your training and slapped a restriction on you right there. She has at least given you an opportunity. Allure, please take Danny back to the dormitory. Show her around and then begin an evaluation. I want to know what she knows before we begin to fill her head with the rest of what is necessary, Deota says, turning to his apprentice. I have a few more meetings to attend to today. I will be by this evening. She nods, accepting her duties. I will learn all there is to know, Master. Please listen to Allure, and do exactly as she says. She is here to help you as much as we all are, Deota says to Danny. Danny and Allure leave the council hall, walked out by Vatus. They've left you with no simple task. You will have to learn quickly, but I believe you will pick it up just fine. You'll look back on this and wonder why you ever stressed, Vatus says. It all sounds good when you say it, but in my head it sounds like lies. I'll manage, though. A severe cram session is still better than being magic raped by the Elders. Allure flinches at Danny's description of being magically restricted. She had never thought of it that way, but agrees that sealing her magical abilities is truly akin to being violated. She makes a pledge to herself to do everything she can to help Danny pass her evaluation. Starting apprentices focus mostly on the elementals of magic. If you can grasp that concept quickly, you'll have no issue surpassing their standards, Vatus says, ignoring Danny's jab at the Elders. Anytime you feel like giving me some help, it would be appreciated. Vatus smiles before stopping at the gate and parting ways with the girls. I will do that. Good luck, Danny. With that, Vatus turns on his heels and returns to the building. Look at you, new girl, the young female voice says as she approaches from the dormitory adjacent to the council hall. Already flirting with the lieutenant. You set your goals very high. I wasn't, Danny stutters. I mean, was it really that obvious? No one can blame you, the girl laughs. Vatus is a complete hunk. Danny isn't used to fawning over a guy. Usually her unnaturally colored hair and alternative clothing is intimidating or an outright turnoff. Here, where the boys dress in armor and practice magic, a girl with dark makeup and green streaks in her hair is no longer considered to be strange. Sure, guys checked her out in school, but none dare ask her out on dates or accompany them to parties. Judged by the way she looked, Danny has never even been asked to a McDonald's by a boy. In some other life, had she not offered him up as a living sacrifice to an ancient and bloodthirsty demonic creature, maybe something more could have developed between her and Jake. They seem to have had a decent enough chemistry, despite her hidden agenda. But she knows that train has long since left the station, and even if they could somehow become friends again after all of this, he could never completely trust her. Could she blame him, really? I'm Caitlin Abbott, an apprentice of Master Vale Georthal, the girl says, pulling up her sleeve to expose her master's lineage tattoo, a fierce-looking ram with very human features. So you're the girl whose master was a sorcerer, right? Everyone is talking about you. I doubt much of it is good, Danny sighs. Don't be too down, Allure reassures. Most of the talk is how strong you are, having fought against a Sicarii and survived. Only I didn't survive, Danny thinks. So is dating even allowed here? She cannot help but again picture Vatus, and her thoughts dwell on him. Both of the other girls laugh. No one really says anything as long as a master and apprentice relationship never takes that turn. I've heard of apprentices being reassigned to new masters because of their illicit romantic entanglements, Allure explains. Danny pictures the faces of Master Deota and Elian and shudders. She could never imagine herself becoming involved with someone so much older than herself. Guessing what she is probably thinking by her facial expressions and body language, Caitlin addresses her again, trying not to laugh. Not everyone who achieves master status is old. Every member of the Knights of Solomon is ranked at least at the level of Master. It's actually one of the prerequisites of acceptance. Finding it hard to believe that Vatus, who cannot be her elder by more than 3 or 4 years, is a Master-level magician, Danny is caught in wonder of the skills the more experienced Masters must possess. How great, she questions, is the gap in skill between her and someone such as Vatus? Could she ever be seen as his equal? I almost forgot why I came out here to find you, Caitlin says, as if the thought fell out of the sky and hit her. Danny begins to realize that the young girl is nice, but not incredibly bright. Master Georthel wanted us to partner up and work on a few skills that we both need to work on after Allure gets you settled in and finishes her evaluation. How could I possibly be a good training partner? I'd only slow you down. You've probably been in training since you were a kid. My teacher never even passed apprenticeship himself. Caitlin smiles, admiring Danny's modesty, whether it is intentional or not. You don't give yourself enough credit. I've heard you already know the most powerful healing spell that they will even teach an apprentice. Danny recalls how strong the Dukan Hellas spell is, repairing Amy's broken neck after her mortal body had been killed by Yamura. So long as the soul is still attached, any wound can be restored by the spell. Plus, your teacher was much more skilled than anyone knew. I heard 2 masters were sent to arrest him, and he was able to kill both of them. Do you honestly believe that someone of apprentice-level status could defend against an assault from 2 masters, let alone defeat them and kill them? Having never thought of it that way before, Danny pauses for a moment. Sensei Schaefer continued his studies for years after leaving the tutelage of Master Tor's Forgeron. From the rumors she had heard going around, he may never have truly ceased receiving his master's instruction. No one seems to really trust Master Forgeron, though she can understand their suspicion. Anyways, my problem is less with the spell casting and more with the physical conditioning and martial arts training. One counter spell against me that hits the mark, and I never seem to be able to recover, Caitlin says. Danny nods, agreeing that martial arts training is a necessary component to their instruction. You also need to build sharper reflexes so that you can dodge those counter spells and not allow them to hit, Danny says. She begins to think of her own shortcomings, her lack of understanding of the basic elements of magic and conjuring. I can put you through my boot camp if you can help me properly conjure each of the elements. I can only seem to cast a basic fire spell and almost draw enough wind to manifest its element. Smiling, Caitlin takes her hand and shakes it once in agreement and up and down. Danny has never made friends with someone like her or Allure before, and she is amazed by how all the social barriers of the primary world have broken down here within the Magic City's walls. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Allure, with her teen model body, and dirty blonde Caitlin with her energetic spirit and voice, so easily warming up to and befriending someone like her, seems to amaze the girl. In high school, like attracted like. The only students that would pay her any mind were other similarly dressed goths, and others that had a nonconformist attitude, despite conforming in their nonconformity. Likewise, the snobbish cheerleaders and privileged elitist teens would only associate with other well-to-doers. Danny wonders if the masters actively choose their apprentices, based on their interactions with each other and melding potential. How could Deota ever have foreseen this strange group coming together so easily? She knows that she has a lot to learn about Endelgion, and even more to unlearn about her previous life. And this is my home now, Danny thinks with a smile. And these are my new friends, my new family.